fascination. I didn't want to write a science fiction book, but I felt that I could show that actual reality had these science fiction overtones. In thinking of that as a starting place, there's always a danger that the mechanical part of the story is going to overshadow the human part of the story. So it was especially dangerous in that respect for Bomber, because most of the characters, both British and German, were going to be able-bodied young men chosen for their physical, emotional, psychological similarity. And to make it more difficult still, my notes when I first started sketching out the plot of the story showed that I was going to need a cast of over 100 people, and these were going to be 100 people, all of them similar to each other. So I knew that I would need some style of writing that would bring a character to life and distinguish them in just a sentence or two of dialogue, so that the reader would pick up on that character 2 or 3 chapters later and know who it was who was talking. And I didn't want to do that by means of crude regional pronunciations. I felt I must do it by means of the syntax, just by making sure I knew the way in which Welsh people ordered their sentences and arranged them, and that in itself should be enough. And all of these characters, although they were similar psychologically, similar physically and so on, they weren't going to be similar in terms of the things they said or the way that they said it. Having made that decision, I had to turn to the technical side of the thing. Now, German radar in 1943 was very advanced. Then Anglo-American technology took the lead, and Germany lost the lead and lost the war. Because of the way in which German radar technology decreased in expertise, at the end of the war, no one was very interested in it, that historians and technicians, that no one in England or America was very interested to go and look at German radar, because their radar of the same period was superior. So it meant I had to go and find technicians and radar operators and night fighter pilots and flak crews and so on, many of whom had never been approached before. And I was and trying to understand the German air defense system, which was completely different to anything that I'd encountered before. Long after Bomber was finished, I wrote a book called Goodbye Mickey Mouse about the American strategic bombing campaign, and that was a sort of book, different in every conceivable way. But of course, the German defences were the same against the daylight raids as they had been against the night raids, or very much the same. And so this was very, very useful to me in the longer run. You know, everything goes into storage. I mean, writers are like that. They put everything into this great warehouse in their mind and try and drag it out and sell it at some future time if they possibly can. Now, having contacted the German radar controllers and the night fighter people, that one knew where we were, and they knew what I wanted, and so that was comparatively straightforward. But I also had to create this small Westphalian town, and with all its social life and its scandals and the Nazi politics, the Burgermeister and the hospital. And now this was a much more complicated problem, and I think I wouldn't have been able to do it without my wife Isabel's fluent German. I don't think I would have been able to do this. It was just too complicated, and it required getting people's confidence when they were talking about the Nazi period. I didn't want them to say there were no Nazis around here for 100 miles, the story. I had to get them to talk about the Nazi period in a realistic and truthful way. And they were correct. Eventually, it took a little time, but eventually people were wonderful. I remember one lady, and we were talking about the Red Cross and the way the Red Cross, nurses worked in the hospital and so on. And all of a sudden she said, I remember. She jumped up from the table and she rushed upstairs and she found some striped overalls. And she had made these overalls from her nurse's